All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here. We do high-level overview, some of the performance updates from GDUFA II. We had a good start from Cook Yule. She did a great job sort of setting this up, and we're going to talk a little bit more detail about this. And then we're going to mix in a few tips for people who are thinking of submitting applications. And so what we want to do here, high level, right, go over some of the goals, look at some of the successes that are already lining up, and encourage people to take advantage of this program. A lot of opportunities. Things are starting to flow better and better every time we turn a new quarter within this program. So high level, I'm going to walk through the pre-submission program. Right? Cook talked a little bit about the importance of getting this done right, getting the application lined up. You're going to hear later on in the conference from other people who are going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of this. I'm going to go into how the original applications flow through the process, some of the different communication points. We're going to be looking at briefly how things work post-approval, right? The job's not done once it's approved. You got to continue manufacture, updates, changes, those type of things. And then we're going to go over some of the metrics, right, and show you what's out there and let you then be able to keep up with how the program is doing and also calibrate how your company may stand against other companies. There's a lot of data that we put out there that will help you really get a better understanding of the flow points, and you can see how successful your organization is. So it starts with the pre-submission. You guys are going to be doing R&D, looking at that application. There's a new drug, it's going off patent, we're interested in it. What do you do to get started? One of the early steps, take a look at the product-specific guidances, providing instruction, how to put together an application. This is very beneficial. Cook showed some statistics showing the success. Applications that follow the guidance process do much better. You're not locked into it. You can certainly justify, and if there's reasons to deviate, take advantage of this. If you're just getting started, think of this. This is what the reviewers are thinking about. Give them what they're thinking, right? You're going to be starting to pull together information to tell the story of your application. Make it easy for us to understand and read that. If you don't see the answers you're looking for in the guidance, you have something unusual. There's a controlled correspondence process. Cook talked a little bit about that as well. This is the ability for you to ask a very specific question. Frame it up. This is the product I'm looking for. This is the RLD. This is my specific question. Make it easy for us. Make sure we are giving you the answer that matters. So ask us a very clear question, and we will do it. A lot of effort. You heard from OPQ, right? 100% compliance on their end. We'll do what it takes to try to help point you down the right path. And that's the key. If you start to pull these pieces together successfully, it'll flow through the process much better. And we both want that. Here's what the metrics are, the controlled correspondence. Right? We're going to do the standard control within 60 days. There's a category, subset, more complex ones, often having more clinical issues, things of that related to them. Those are going to be a little bit longer. Right? Factor that into your own time frames. We do a very good job about meeting these goals. We need time to address it. And obviously, the more complex the question is, the more time and more touch points maybe internally have to happen before we can get back to you. Our performance, we take it seriously. And you'll see that's a theme. Every goal that we have, we take seriously. So we're well over 90% compliance with this, right? Exceeding the goal and continuing to do so. Original applications. Done the work, followed the guidance, gotten some extra tips in hand. Make that submission. As Cook said, receiving an average of about 1,000 applications per year. Right? And again, I'll point out the same thing, fluctuations. You see fluctuations from year to year. You see fluctuations within the year. We tend to see spikes at the end of each quarter. We tend to see spikes at the end of each month. Right? The last couple days tend to be the busiest for this group. Think about that. Think about when it's more appropriate for you to put your application in. And sometimes there's a magic date. Other times you have a little bit more control of when that application is submitted. It's much better to wait a couple of days and do it right than to race in. Right? And with very few exceptions, the filing date doesn't matter. Right? There's a certain class of products where it does. Do your work on those. You don't want to get refused, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Our work doesn't stop with the filing. And think about that. Think about when you're doing your timing of submissions. Right? We're reviewing all the original applications. We're reviewing all the changes, called amendments to those applications. So a lot of activity going on. And think about that. How many applications before the center at any given time, right? We typically see about 2,000 applications in play with our teams at any given moment. That's a lot for us to have to go through, and sort of remember that as we talk about some of these other points that are coming up. When you submit it, make sure it's right. Follow the guidance. If it's not appropriate, provide a significant justification. Start to put together the story of that application. You need to tell us what you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, and tell it with confidence. Right? Make us believe that you know how to make this drug and how to make it right. So what we're starting to see with some expansions of some of the practices, both in terms of guidances and maps that we have out there, and even sharing the checklist itself. Right? We're seeing a drop in the refuse to file rate. That is a good thing. We want that. We need that. So take a look at some of the tools that are out there as you're preparing to make that submission. Right? We want this number to drop even more. Here's why. Big impact on the program, refuse to file. Right? It's not the desired state for us, but there's a lot of pressure, and that's the counterpoint. We have to follow the regulations. Right? If there's a regulation out there, we must follow it. Right? We don't have free rein. We must be consistent. Tremendous pressure and scrutiny of the people making the filing decisions. We have to treat every application the same way. Think about that. Right? Help us to land there with your specific application. And that means that we can't provide any waivers. Small size of company, experience. We're not allowed to factor that in. Administrative or inadvertent errors. Be surprised how many times we see companies come in. Oh, yes, this was on us. We screwed this up, but please, let us do it. We don't have that flexibility. But at the same time, we want to make sure that you understand, here's the target. Here's the path to success. So take advantage of the opportunity to work in advance of that submission. Look at the guidances. If it's appropriate, have the meetings if you have a complex product. Take advantage of all those communications. Help to line up your stories and start those interactions with the agency even before that application is submitted. When we refuse to file an application, it's a big burden. Lots and lots of resources. That filing group reports to me. Right? They've come in many times. The amount of effort it takes them to refuse is much greater than it is to accept. There is no benefit. We're not making money. There's not additional resources for us. It is extra work. We have to get the filing review team and the policy team together to work on these. Right? Extra people, extra amount of time. Right? It's diverting from the other activities. So help us get through this. Oftentimes people are disputing, which starts with a request for reconsideration. You didn't accept my application, gave me a refusal. I need it filed. You're going to do those. Provide real basis. You misread the application. Here's our justification. It was there. Here's why we follow the rules and regulations. If you didn't do that, there's not much wiggle room for us. Right? We have to be fair to everybody, so there's a very small window of opportunity for us to go back and say, here's what we're going to do for you. Did it wrong, explain it to us, and we'll be glad to work through there. But if it was inadvertent errors, you didn't pull it in right, the timing got out of sequence on your end, there's not much we can do to help you. These are huge efforts. When we sit down to make a decision at this level, we are pulling in several different people from all the background that we need, all the disciplines that are involved with that decision. A room full of people helping to make sure that we have done everything possible to be fair and equitable to all the applications. This can delay your filing. Delayed filing is going to delay your approval. We've also seen, and we're going to try to collect more data in the future, that applications that are refused, even if you subtract the time it takes them to resubmit that application, they tend to take longer to be approved. So your goal shouldn't be to slide by filing. The goal should be, I'm giving FDA a quality application. We want the approvals. There is a lot of pressure on us to approve a certain amount of products. Now, nobody up high cares. You need to approve application 1, 2, 3, 4, but there's a lot of pressure. Approve a volume each month, every month, lot of effort internally to pull that together. We want the approvals. We need the approvals. Drug shortages, first generics, things of that nature. We want you to be successful. It is easier for us, less resources, less time to take the good application and move it through towards approval. Now think about that. Let me throw you a couple tips, right? It's worth your time to invest in the application. It's going to save you time at the end, right? Do it right, spend a little more time to do it right. Start your planning a little earlier or potentially wait a little bit on your submission until you know everything's in place. That's going to save you money. You get refused, you're going to lose money. You're going to resubmit that application, pay the full fee again. You're going to delay your market entry. You want to be saving us time. Make it easy for us to make the assessments. Make it easy for us to move that application into play with the disciplines. And think about that. Do you want that review team searching for data in your application? What message does that send? Does it give us the confidence that you know what you're doing if we have to go all over the place? Or we have to have interactions with you. Some data's here, some data's here, some data's here. That's hard for us to pull all those pieces together to get to that point in time where we feel, yes, this company knows what it's doing. So think about that. Think about sloppy applications. Hard for us to read, hard for us to verify. Summaries don't match the data that's in there. Think about the impact of that for the review team. Right? We have to make a decision on whether you understand what's going on. And if you can't even pull the paperwork together right, that's going to make it tough for us. So really spend the time to get these submissions in great. This is one of the biggest points we can make about companies who are starting off. Do it right. Get a good application in. Your life will be much easier. Our life will be much easier. The trends that we're seeing. Once that application's in and it's filed, another set of communication starts up with companies. We're going to be issuing information requests. Right? You're filed. You still need a little bit more information about this point. We're going to send an information request out for you. New to GDUFA II, these discipline review letters. We've committed now for original applications coming in that we are going to give you some preliminary thoughts from that review team at roughly the midpoint in the process. Take advantage of that. You give us an application that's 95% right, a few maybe easy things to tweak, we're going to give you those comments. You have the right to respond during that cycle. Get those last couple pieces in place. Let us get that understanding of the application and move that into an approval. So think about it. Your response to these, make sure it's complete. There's nothing worse for you than if we say these are the 5 things that are wrong. You come in and say, I'm answering 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oops, we missed number 5. Right? That happens a lot. Right? Not only can't we accept it because you haven't given us a complete response, it shows you're not paying attention and you don't have control over the application. Make sure it's accurate. Make sure the responding data fits in this way with the data that's in the application. We see something like this, it's going to raise additional questions for the review team. And it may focus us on other aspects. You see, it's worth saying twice. Be consistent. You're telling a story with your application. Make sure that that story is consistent throughout all of your communications. Make sure it's easy for us to read, to understand, to follow it through. Make sure your responses are on time. If you have a mic, I can just grab a hand mic. Use these communications to close off the cycle. No, that's okay. It's on the TV. Is that better? All right. A little bit. I don't sound so good once, so twice isn't going to help you guys. Okay. All right, well, the key is, right, use the communications. show your understanding, make us confident you know what's going on at each of these touch points. Right? Then hopefully when it's time to take an action, we're going to see more and more approvals, tentative approvals, and fewer complete responses. Right? We want the approval. We want that tentative approval. Right? We need it to justify our program. If you're a reviewer, it's easier to write, these are the 10 important things, the company did it right. As opposed to these are the 10 important things, and here's all my documentation on why they did it wrong and what I need to see when it comes back. Right? It's extra work for us to do the complete response as opposed to get that approval, tentative approval out. Here are the rates. As Cook alluded to earlier, right? Getting better and better, right? More productive, more efficient at every quarter. Right? Every time we roll in a new review enhancement, those type of activities, we are getting more productive. All right. This is what operations is all about, right? Moving in the flux of things. So what we're talking about here is first cycle approvals. We want this number to go up even more. Take advantage. Take advantage of that discipline review letter, right? That's your opportunity to put those last couple tweaks in that application in place to help you get that first cycle approval. This is a big win for you, very big. You should see more and more of these coming up in the future. And it is a great way for you to pull ahead of the competition, right? Even if your submission may be a couple weeks beyond your competitors. It's not an NCE type of application. This is the best way to make up time. Give us a good application and we will get it through and out the door. The goals itself. A lot of people look at FDA, how seriously do you take these goals? Right? You got 5 more years until you have to renegotiate. We take them seriously right out of the blocks. Right? A lot of effort. Right? We'll show you a couple internal tracking reports as we go through as well. Reporting is actually built into the GDUFA II program. Not just these are your goals, but we have a section where there's goals just to do reports. Right? That's how much oversight there is. Right? We have to go and do an annual report to Congress each year. These are the goals. Here's what we did. We've got to justify, explain if we miss those goals. GAO traditionally comes in and audits. Right? We had that under GDUFA I. We expect that again under GDUFA II. Right? We want that to be successful. It was very successful under GDUFA I. We want to continue that success. What this is a real snapshot. This is a report that we use internally to track it. Now, we've taken away the names and those kind of things, but I want to show you, we put a lot of effort into making the goal, and if we miss the goal, we don't walk away. We continue. In fact, there's extra reporting that goes on above and beyond, and you miss that goal. Now, what I want to do is, this is a monthly snapshot. These are originals that were missed 1 month. And I'll walk through a couple of examples at the end here. If you look at number 9, we missed the goal in this case because there was an actionable date. That means the first day that product could go on the market was over here. Our goal date was in advance of that. We were done. We could have issued a tentative approval and collected our GDUFA bean, right? Celebrate. Instead, what we did, too close together. We said, you know what? The applicant may have trouble getting the tentative approval, resubmitting information, right? The conversion into full approval. Right? And then we've got to go back to the review teams and do our endorsement process and validate all over again. We actually sat on it for a short period of time. Right? We're not going to sit for years, but we will sit for a little bit of time to go straight to that approval. We missed the goal, right? We had to explain up the line why we missed the goal. We missed the goal for you and for the patients. It is a win. You have that application on day 1. Patients have that application out there. You can start marketing on that, and the patients can start to get that product. Number 10, same type of thing, a little easier to read. Right? We gave you real notes from the people reporting in there. Same example. Right? The patent date coming up, can't touch that. That's in place. Everybody knew it was a valid patent date. Worked. The applicant, get everything lined up. Work with all of the disciplines, review disciplines, facility disciplines, all these pieces in place, ready to go. And then we'll work to figure out when is it in your best interest to get that approval, even if it's not in our best interest from a GDUFA goal perspective. We will do this. Take it very seriously. If we miss, we're going to keep on those applications, and in certain cases, if it's better for you for us to miss, we will. Walk through a couple high-level data points here. This is a snapshot. It's a few months old now, but it shows sort of the breakout of all of the unapproved original applications. At this time, this was data that was run December 31st, bolus of submissions, late December, right? A lot of companies closing out, submitting their applications at the end of December, right? So we had a certain queue in the filing group. There's a small set where we hadn't done communications. These were the recent submissions, within the last 2 or 3 months, where some of the communication flows beyond filing hadn't occurred. And there was about 1,500 in play. We've already had some type of communications, maybe an IR, maybe a DRL, maybe a complete response, and this has come back officially for the second, third, fourth time. 2,000 applications with us. Now, put it in perspective. 1,700 with industry, right? That number's been growing and growing. That's because of the success on the review team, right? A lot of applications in, a lot of communications going out the door. Then you got the tentative approvals, nearly 400 with industry. In fact, that number is a little bit lower here than reality because oftentimes we'll issue a tentative approval, we'll make changes. Those actually go back in, would start up with that blue line and work their way through sort of at the midpoint of that top blue line there. We want more and more of these tentative approvals. Let's shrink the number with us, shrink the number with industry, funnel those into the tentative approvals. There's no greater business certainty than having that tentative approval in your hand. Right? What you see, for the first time in the history of the program, it's actually more unapproved products with industry than with FDA. So if you submit your application to us, right, we're going to honor those goal dates. We're going to jump on it at filing. We're going to jump on it at all the review stages, the inspection stages. We're going to get you an answer. Help us make that answer an approval or tentative approval. So what you see is the workload with the whole program. You can see the flow of communications back and forth. Right? There is a lot of activity. And when Cook said we're partnering with OPQ on a daily basis, we're partnering dozens of times every single day. Right? The two groups coming together working on these applications. And when you look at sort of the totals for the whole program, and this is to Cook's point, lots and lots of applications getting converted to approval. Each time we run these quarterly reports, you can see this increase. So very successful. What we're also trying to do, and right, it's a good thing I had this cohort of receipt. This is what Cook was talking about. Right? We're saying the same thing. Right? A little different way of depicting the data. New applications. This is what your future looks like. So think about how those numbers, if you look down at the bottom, FY17 submissions coming in. Right? This data is a few months old. We've already approved sort of the fastest 5%. Look at the drops in the time. Right? The time with FDA is dropping with each generation, with each cohort of receipts that we receive. So certainly you look at some of the overall approval times, it seems very high, and especially if you're looking for that magic 30-month clock, right? Some of the numbers seem high. That's because it includes all of the old applications that may still be cycling through the system. Right? As we said, there's more with industry now than ever. They're taking a little bit longer for certain applications to come back because they have limited capacity. So what we start to see is some of the approval time savings haven't translated to the official metrics yet because we may cut some time off the FDA end, but we certainly understand that industry has to now keep up with the pace of communications from us. But this is great. This is real data. Right? Every time we get another set of metrics, we'll continue to post this out there. You can start to measure. And you can start to compare, too. How is my company doing against the average? Right? Am I ahead of the curve, behind the curve? What do I need to do to fix that? And again, use this to pull ahead. You can see those quality submissions are going through and being approved in record times. You can also see the benefit of the goal. Right? A lot of effort was put in place to figure out what was the ideal state. Force FDA to go very briskly through that review process and take the review components, right, called assessment, and the inspection components and pull those together. Right? What do we know about the facilities? Do we need to inspect? Do we get all that back together? Right? That's tight for us in 10 months. But you can see what it does. We are taking that goal very seriously. And when you look at sort of the median time, this is time that we're approving today versus a specific cohort. This now is below 30 months, right, in dropping. And so for those of you sort of keeping an eye on certain types of products, that's a meaningful number. We want that to go lower and lower. We're seeing that. That prior chart shows you the good companies are getting their applications approved well in advance of 30 months. Many companies getting applications approved in under 10 months. Here's again a different sort of snapshot. Here's what the universe of applications look like. Right? Section with us, section with industry, and then another set that are in this tentative approval status. Right? We want to take pending industry and with FDA and push more and more of those into tentative approval. Right? Coming in early, let's get it tentatively approved. Doesn't stop there. We've got to manage the application after approval. Prior approval supplements are coming through. Again, we're going to communicate. Much higher percent of first cycle approval for these, right? We understand that. Usually smaller changes could be affecting multiple disciplines. We'll work those through. In some cases, it's just one discipline. We'll work with whoever we need to get that response out to you. Use the same sort of information request process. If we think there's something small that you guys can quickly turn into an answer for us, that would then allow us to move through to an approval. That's what we want to do. Get those changes in place, get them back in your hands, get the applications, get those lines up and running again. Metrics. Some additional communication points that are required out of GDUFA II. Right? We'll walk through those sort of at a high level. First, very scary to the internal people here. We're on pace for 10,000 goals to be set within the ANDA program this year. First 4 months, we did over 3,200. Review goals, controlled documents, meeting requests, right? OCRLT cons, development meetings, submission meetings, all of those things. Think about that. 10,000 goals in this program. Right now, we're exceeding all of them, right? We want to keep that success going. So you're going to see us put different metrics out in the public domain. Right? We're going to talk a little bit more upcoming in this conference about the product development and pre-submission meetings. Right? That is a great program for people who are working on the more complex ANDA submissions. Right? Extra communications, extra care and feeding to help you develop that story. Show us you know what's going on as you're pulling together the application and continue that momentum through filing into the review. Talk more about controlled correspondence, right? We continue to put metrics out on that. That's important. If we don't give you the answer, you can't submit the application. We take that seriously. There's metrics OPQ manages, right? The drug master files. They've done a tremendous amount of work to increase the communications exponentially over the past several years. Right? Lots and lots of information now going to and from active pharmaceutical ingredients. Right? It's not you, you're using a drug master file, relationships like that. We are working with those people to help make sure they know what their target is. Again, it's a high target, but again, we want to help them meet that target. We're going to be putting out all sorts of metrics on the review side, and we'll sort of highlight the mid-cycle meetings and TCONs. This is another new feature, GDUFA II. For those complex products, not only are we going to have meetings with you before you make the submissions, we're going to have a meeting with you at the midpoint. Right? We're going to schedule a formal teleconference months in advance of that midpoint. We're going to bring in the disciplines. Right? We're going to go over that discipline review letter that we sent you. We gave you 5 deficiencies outlined in that letter, with sort of our preliminary thoughts. We think we need to spend a little time talking about number 2 and 3. Help us sort of galvanize our thoughts. Help us understand this part of your story. We set up metrics, and this is just illustrative, but we have goals to help us align to make sure we know we're going to meet the other goals. Just like you guys. If FDA says their standards, you're putting things in place like this. We're doing the same thing. What you see is a very wide range of metrics we're going to be reporting on. Not just applications, but all these other features. Right? If there's a commitment, Cook said read that letter, she's right. We're going to have information out on there. So you can see very clearly what's going on. Receipts to approvals, right, to facility-specific types of issues. The number and types of reports that are going out by the program is increased. Take advantage of that. That will help you navigate where you're trying to go. There's a dashboard that comes out every quarter. And there's the very formal GDUFA performance reports. And then I want to conclude by saying the program is in great shape. Things are going very well. Approval times are dropping. Time with FDA is dropping even more. Communications are increasing. Right? The first quarter of GDUFA, record approvals and tentative approvals. Best quarter ever. Right? So we're off to a very good start. We're exceeding the GDUFA II goals. So it is a great time. Get those applications in. We will work with you guys to make them successful. Thank you very much for your interest in the program.